What is up, everyone? It's Gage here. Welcome to youbucthat. And today we welcome our new co-host of youbucthat, Ken Filler. Welcome to the team, my guy.
Thank you, Gage. Thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for your warm welcome. I am a passionate Buccaneer fan, first and foremost, so everyone needs to know that right up front. I've been a Bucs fan probably since about 2015. Been an NFL fan my whole life. Born and raised in Cleveland, so I know what it's like to have a lot of bad football to watch. Moved here about 2010, and I live here. I don't live there anymore, so I switched my allegiance to the Buccaneers. I still root for the Browns to do well. I hope they do well every season, but the Bucs are number one. They have my focus and my energy. Football has always been number one, so very passionate about Buccaneer football.
I'm glad to hear it, Ken. And also, you're a writer. I'm trying to think of the name, but I know you have your own website and you're a writer.
I do, yes. It's called TampaBayProSports.com. I usually write about 15 to 20 pieces a month, and we cover the Bucs, the Rays, and the Lightning. Depending on what season, sometimes you'll see more Bucs content, sometimes more Lightning content now that the Lightning are in the playoffs. Had a big win last night in Game 1 against Toronto. So we'll be writing about that in the next day or two, that series as it continues. But yeah, TampaBayProSports.com. I also have a Facebook page called Tampa Bay Pro Sports. You can just go Facebook app, click on Tampa Bay Pro Sports, and all the content will be there for you.
That's awesome. And it's nice to kind of get the feel of you as a fan and obviously a co-host. As a co-host, do you have like any goals that you have in mind?
My only goal is to just grow this podcast. I think this is a perfect time to start it with the draft coming up. Off-season workouts are going to be commencing. I actually think they already started this week. We'll get into some OTAs in May, mini camp in June, and then we'll have that down period, before training camp kicks in late July and the 1st of August. But I think this is a great time to kind of grow the podcast, get some, some content ideas. And, as we go along, maybe we'll get some ideas from our viewers and listeners as to what they want us to talk about, what they want maybe our opinions on. So I think now's the perfect time, and we just want to grow this thing and see where it goes.
I agree 100%. And it's nice to have someone with similar vision. So to get us started, a lot of Bucks content's been going on. Baker Mayfield getting signed. Everyone's going in for workouts. And a somewhat fan legend, Blaine Gabbert, has went to the Kansas City Chiefs. So a lot to...
Well, Blaine Gabbert, I don't know that he will be missed much. He'll probably be missed more in the meeting room and in the quarterback room than he was on the field. He was with the Bucs for 3 seasons, and I think he attempted like 36 passes in 3 seasons. 3 touchdown passes, no interceptions. A lot of that was garbage time, but he'll do the same thing in Kansas City that he did in Tampa. He'll stand on the sideline and look good and hold a clipboard and wear a baseball hat and watch Patrick Mahomes do his thing on the field.
And maybe toss him a Super Bowl trophy if he wins Super Bowl this year again.
That's true. That's a pretty nice way to get a Super Bowl trophy, though. Think about it. You stand on the sideline, hold a clipboard, signal in a few plays, and voila, at the end of the season, you're getting rewarded with a Super Bowl trophy. That's not a bad gig.
No, it's not. He's already have a ring in Tampa, and Chiefs, they have a great chance of going right back to the Super Bowl. They're just that type of team.
They do, and they have a good management group in place. They have a good GM and a good coach, and they're in a position now where they can lose some really good players, and it doesn't really affect them. Look at Tyreek Hill. Last year, he leaves to go to Miami. Everybody thought the Chiefs were going to fall off a a notch or two, and they didn't, end up winning the Super Bowl. So they're able to bring in some guys to replace folks that they lose, and that's all scouting and coaching and management, and they do a really good job of that in Kansas City.
Yeah, and also like Tyreek Hill, like I don't think I think it's more benefit that he left. Like Tyreek Hill, he was a very me guy. He wanted to be a number one receiver. He gets I feel like he wants all the attention. Even like, oh, we're gonna smoke the Kansas City Chiefs. Um and I think that affects the locker room because this is a guy, he's a veteran you have to look up to, and this is a me guy, you're not gonna respect that too much. And it's gonna affect everyone's chemistry. It's not a coincidence that as soon as he left, they won a Super Bowl. Like that's
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say that they win the Super Bowl just because he left. I don't think that was the driving reason. I mean, there's a lot of things that have to come into play, obviously for you to win the Super Bowl. But if you go down through a lot of NFL rosters, there's a lot of those me guys on rosters. I mean, look at Odell Beckham. I mean, he's talented, but I mean, look at the problems he caused in Cleveland. I mean, at the end there with Baker Mayfield, he made it all about him, and it was a huge distraction, in the locker room. So you could go down roster by roster, and I'm sure, at some point every team has, one of those guys. Unfortunately, that's just the NFL. With the NIL now in college, these guys are being told, early on, and even in high school, they're the greatest thing since sliced bread, and they're going to do this and do that and make this kind of money. And, they hang around guys that feed them that. So I don't think that's going away anytime soon. You're always going to have that element on your NFL teams. You just are. There's no getting away from it. And you just have to learn to manage that and deal with it as best you can.
Odell Beckham. He creates attention, but he doesn't go nuts. He's not like on Twitter like, oh, this guy, I'm going to smoke that guy. It's like he definitely likes attention, likes to be a me guy, but he at least keeps it professional. Tyreek Hill doesn't really do that. Like there's going to be some me guys, but at least they somewhat keep it professional, and they're going to keep the attention limited. Tyreek Hill, I just feel like he doesn't have that. Like he just he goes everywhere. Like,
well,
and you definitely,
the Bucks had one of those guys. If you remember Antonio Brown.
yeah.
If it wasn't for Tom Brady, there's no way Antonio Brown's on the Buccaneers. Now, hell of a talent, hell of a player, and he had a big hand in helping the Bucks win that Super Bowl. But he's one of those guys. It's all about him, and everything has to revolve, around him. And we saw how that ended and how it imploded, in New York late in in the season.
Yeah, it's a great example. Antonio Brown was a very me guy, and there is speculation that he has CTE because there's a lot of things don't make sense what he does. But even before that, and that comes to question. But I think before he was always like that. Like he was always a me guy. Even a lot of players trying to say Q said it. One a legendary Steelers player. He was like, "Yeah, man. As soon as you get that contract." He just changed. Like he wasn't Antonio Brown that was a 6th-round pick that was working his way up. He was a very me. He turned into a me guy. Like, I'm the one that's helping Steelers win all the rings and all that. So, he didn't win any rings there, but he's like, I won all the games. But definitely, kind of shows his mentality, and then led to his downfall. He would still be in the league if he just didn't just would have been a team player.
No, 100%. I mean, he just burned too many bridges and pissed too many people off, and at the end there, he really, really unraveled. And I think the teams took a look at that and said, no, it's a hard pass for us. We know you're talented. We know you can probably help us, but we're not going to bring that kind of element into our locker room.
Yeah, because it's the energy there. Like teams that you see win the Super Bowls, they have good chemistry with each other. They're not like they don't have that kind of toxicity in the locker room. A lot of them don't.
Exactly. And speaking of Antonio Brown, I think that Tom Brady and Mike Evans and some of the leaders on that offense, they were able to manage him and kind of keep him in check a little bit there for a short period of time. And then, eventually with those kind of guys, it's going to unravel and implode, and it usually doesn't end well, as it didn't for Antonio Brown. But, I give a lot of credit to Brady and Evans. I think they're probably the two guys that kind of talked to him and kind of kept him in check.
Even for a season. He helped us get a ring. I would say, he was a big part of that offense. I would say so. At least we're able to get a season out of him. But unfortunately, you only could do so much as a player. And honestly, I thought Brown thought he started to get better as like a team player and all that. But unfortunately, didn't turn out that way. During that Jets game.
Sure did.
Yeah, the halftime show, I'll tell you, definitely was entertaining, but it was like, what the hell just happened?
Exactly. Yeah, that's the first and the last. The first time you have seen that, and probably the last time you'll ever see that in a game.
Yeah, I was like, what is happening? Like, it was just a lot, man. And then it brought unnecessary attention. Like, oh, is it Bruce Arians make Antonio Brown play injured, or him and Tom Brady don't have? It was just a lot. It was a lot going on.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, Gage, one thing that really drives me crazy about a lot of these athletes is they do not want to take accountability and responsibility for anything. When things implode, when things go south, immediately they start pointing the finger. Well, it's the coach's fault. It's the offensive scheme. It's, my teammates. I don't like this guy. He said this. It's always somebody else's fault. At the end of the day, we are all responsible for our own behavior. Okay? People are going to say things. People can say whatever they want. But at the end of the day, it's up to us to react appropriately, and it's on us to how we respond. And most of these guys, Antonio Brown included, they just go scorched earth on everybody. And they start pointing the fingers. But one thing people forget is when you're pointing the finger at somebody, you got four fingers pointing right back at you.
Yeah. And I agree with that. It's a lot of some of these top players, they're like, they let their egos get very high, and they're like, oh, like, no, it's not my fault, it's their fault. It's like, man, like, you can't control whatever people do. It's your choice. If someone's making you play injured, then don't play. That's your choice. It's not like you're forced. It's not like they're forcing you. They can't. It's against your human rights. Like, you cannot play. So you can't blame Bruce Arians or Tom Brady. You have that choice, and ultimately it comes to yourself. That was your choice, man. And you got to take responsibility because we can't control what other people do, but we control what we can do.
100%.
So say accountability is very important.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it always comes back to us. We're responsible for how we respond and how we interact. Absolutely.
And now on to the biggest topic. Devin White requesting a trade.
Well, it's his right to request a trade, and it's the Bucs' right to say, no, you're not going anywhere.
Yep.
I think it's all a negotiation ploy. I mean, let's call it for what it is. Usually this kind of thing can and will occur as the contract is close to running out and you're in line for a new contract and a big contract. And you want to make sure that you get the maximum dollar that you can get. So you issue these idle threats. There's two ways this is going to end. Well, actually, three ways. Number one is the Bucs aren't going to trade Devin White. So Devin White's going to be on the Bucs in 2023. Number two, Devin White can sit out the season. He can say, okay, you don't want to give me a new contract. I'm not happy with the money I'm making. I'm going to sit out the season. Okay, fine. That's his right. The Bucs still aren't going to trade him. And then number three is they'll sign him to a new contract, sometime between now and when the season starts, and we'll forget about this and we'll all live happily ever after. Those are the three scenarios that I see playing out right now with Devin White.
I think either he gets resigned, like you mentioned, or I think the Bucks at this point, if he's like super unwilling, let's say he's like, no, I'm not getting less than 18 million at most, and the Bucks are like, man, it's way out our price range. I could see him getting traded because if we trade him, we free up 11 million, which we have the 19th pick. Obviously, we need more needs, but we could grab a linebacker in the first round. So Devin White, really, there's more benefit of him getting traded. We would get compensation and we could get a linebacker at number one that has potentially be better than Devin White. Devin, like my guy, like you can't be asking 100 million to be a top five. That's top five linebacker money. You're not that. Like his coverage skills have not been good. If you're going to be getting that paid, you got to be good overall, not just solid. You got to be good at coverage. You got to be consistent because last year we've seen a lot of missed tackles from him and just inconsistent play. Like even the sack, a Buccaneers legend's like, man, that guy should have his captain's patch off his uniform. Like he's not even hustling. He doesn't show much effort. So there's a lot of questions we've got to concern Devin White, and asking for 100 million raises even more. So it's like,
yeah, I don't think he'll get 100 million in Tampa. Somebody might give him 100 million if he wants to hold out that long and play the game that long. Someone probably will, because there's a lot of stupid money that these owners and these organizations are just throwing at players right now. But I agree with your points. There was a lot of missed tackles, especially when he was ready to bring down the quarterback. Could not bring the quarterback to the ground in a lot of cases. He did take a lot of plays off, loafed a lot, lack of hustling, and those are all, true faults of Devin White. He's got to work to improve those. But also at the end of the day, he's led the team in tackles or close to it the last 2-3 seasons. He's been right up there. He's pretty durable, plays a lot of snaps. And for linebackers, for the inside linebacker position, this is not a strong draft. I think I checked a couple of draft boards. The highest a guy that I think maybe a Pro Football Focus had was maybe early in the second round as far as an inside linebacker goes. So this is not a good year to be, maybe wanting to get another franchise type inside linebacker, with Levante David, obviously, on his way out in the next couple of years. So I think the only choice the Bucs have is just, hey, we're either going to play you. You can sit out if you want, but we're not trading you. We're just not going to trade you right now. 6 months from now, that could change. But as we sit here today before the draft, I don't think they're trading him. I don't think they're going to take a linebacker with the first pick. That would be crazy to me. He's on the roster for the 2023 season.
Now, do you think if, let's say, a team, because this is just hypothetical, because I really don't think it's very unlikely, but if a team offered a second-round pick, do you think the Bucs would take it for Devin White?
I think they would think about it. Yeah, absolutely. And I think it would also depend on who's on the board when whatever team they're talking with. Sometimes the Bucs, they don't draft for need. They'll draft the best player on the board, regardless of whether they have a need at that position, or not. So I think it would really depend in the moment. Okay, who's offering us the second round pick? Who's on the board? And is that a big area of opportunity and need for us? that we can, grab somebody that's really going to be able to impact our offense or defense this season.
That's why like a lot of trades happen during the draft because there's some players that drop, and then like you see Marquise Brown, he got traded in the first round. Like the guy beforehand wouldn't maybe would have got a first round pick for, maybe a second, but the draft really sparks up things. The teams are moving up, so let's say a really good linebacker drops in the second round, and someone's, hey, we'll give you this if you take Devin White, if we can get Devin White, and I could see there's a possibility there. So Devin White, I would say if he would get traded, it would be during the draft.
I could see that, but the other question I think you have to ask yourself is, okay, let's say they're going to make a trade and they're going to take a linebacker with that second round pick, wherever it might fall. Is that linebacker going to be able to come in? Is it going to be able to start from day one, like Devin White did? And is he going to be able to put up decent numbers? There's a lot of linebackers or defensive players, even on offense, they come into the league and they struggle their first year or two picking up the nuances, the speed and all that of the NFL game. So, and that's hard to say. I mean, all the intangibles can be there, but at the same time, you really don't know how somebody's going to perform till you actually see them on the field, in that situation. You can have pretty good guess and have a pretty good feel for it, but I think I would make sure that, okay, this guy is 100%. He's going to come in, going to be able to start for us and put up some good numbers like Devin White did, because that's what you're going to need over the next 5, 6, 8 years with Lavonte David, on the back end of his career.
Yeah, that's going to be a very important question, which kind of leaves maybe them not trade Devin White because it's a very big need. And Lavonte David, this could be his last season.
Yes.
And then you have 2 spots to fill if that rookie doesn't pan out.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of risk involved. That's why I don't believe Devin White will get traded unless it's a top pick, like maybe a second round. I say he would get traded for a first round, but a second round, that's still even a question mark.
It is. A third round pick, you could say, oh yeah, I could see him getting traded for a third round pick. But if I'm the Bucs, I'm not trading him for a third round pick. I mean, I understand that that's probably the market value. I'm not trading a productive player, that leads my team in tackles, has been a starter since day one. I'm not trading.
And he's a captain.
Yeah, I'm not trading him for a third round pick. I'm just not.
No, Devin White, he's a playmaker. Like when he's on the field, he does impact. He does make an impact. I think he kind of lost that a little bit. I think he got maybe he got over his head a little bit. Like, oh, I'm the best linebacker. That's what Devin's got to realize. You're not a top 5 linebacker. Not even a top 10 right now, man. Like, and we're not going to probably trade you because there's no teams that probably would pay because you're asking for a lot of money. And we want a top pick, so it's probably not going to happen. Not unless some team is just feeling like, okay, fuck it, let's just give him a second round pick. That's maybe the only way I could see that. But like you said, there's a lot of risk with that because the linebacker has to come in day one and take over a big position. So it's not looking good. It's not looking good with that situation right now. So we're just going to have to see how it pans out. But I say Devin, for me, I would give him maybe 12 to 14 million per year because there's still a lot of question marks with him as a linebacker.
Yeah, I think he'll get a little more than that. I think probably 16, 17 is probably would be the cap, in Tampa. But, to your point earlier about him making plays, we've seen him do that, and then kind of regressing at times this past season. He just got to be consistent, man. You just got to bring it every single snap, every single down, every single play. That's how you get elevated into the Bobby Wagner class, into the Roquan Smith class. Okay, you put in the work, and then on game day, you don't take a play off. Your motor's running 110% from start to finish. And I don't think we've seen that from Devin White. I think he can get better. I think he has the potential to be better, but it's up to him. It's all up to him.
It is, and it's not like he doesn't have veterans kind of teach them. But there's an excuse for them not being good at coverage. He has someone like David who's struggled in his early careers of coverage, similar to Devin, and he was able to master that within around his 5th year. Devin could if I was Devin personally, I'd be like, hey, David, is there what way? How did you get better at coverage? Because obviously what I'm doing is not working. So do you have any tips or anything that I can work on to maybe hone in my skill a little bit more? So Devin, I think he needs to let go of his ego a little bit and ask some questions of these veterans, Shaquille Barrett and David. I think once he won the Super Bowl, I think he got over his head a little bit. And he's like, yeah, I'm the best player. I made so many plays this season. I'm the top dog now. It's like, no, bro. You your overall skills, you're too inconsistent. There's too many question marks with you, man. This is why if you ask for 100 million, you're not going to get it because you haven't proven it.
Yeah, I would agree with that assessment. Yeah, he's still got some things I think to prove to get that $100 million contract. He's not quite there yet. Can he get there? Yes, but like I said, it's up to him. He's got to be more consistent, have that motor running. As Warren Sapp says, play in, play out, every down, all the time.
Gotcha.
If he does that, absolutely, they'll have no problem. He'll have no problem getting a check for $100 million.
Yeah, if he does that, because he could take even this is a scenario as well. If he does still want to get top paid, maybe take a short deal, like a 2-year deal, and it's like maybe 15 mil per year. So maybe next year he could either get traded, or if he earns it this year, he can paid the next year. So that's another possibility if he's willing to do that. But we're going to see how it plays out. There's a lot of scenarios with David. Devin. It's going to be it's definitely interesting.
Yeah, it will be, and how it all ends, I think he plays this season, and I think him and the Bucs will eventually come to an agreement on an extension at some point.
Yeah, I agree as well because Devin, last I've heard, he has a good relationship with Todd Bowles and GM. I think it's going to take a little bit more time because David obviously wants to get his value, wants to make sure he can get everything he can. So I think it's just going to be talked over for next few months. Honestly, I don't really expect too many news of him until July or August. I think that's probably where he's going to get an extension, or he's just going to have to play this year. Because I don't think he's going to sit out. It's not like he's been a top quarterback because they can get money even after he spent a year on the bench. Devin, he hasn't been that type of player where he can sit out a year and still get paid. He's going to have to play or his value is going to drop.
Well, the other thing that you want to do too, if you're Devin White, is you don't want to be a distraction. And the longer this goes, as we get into training camp, the regular season, he's going to be constantly asked about that. By the local media, by the national media, going to be asked about the contract, and at some point that could be a huge distraction on this team. And when you're retooling, as the Bucs will be this season, you don't need that type of distraction.
No, and we're just gonna see how it plans out. Hopefully, they can get it done earlier than preseason. Hopefully around training camp would be the best time. But hopefully it gets done soon. But it's been crazy. Also, the Bucs have been getting some really great signings like Ryan Neal.
Yeah, Ryan Neal, he's going to be a lot better than a lot of people think. I mean, NFL people, they know his talent. This was the first year that he really was put, into a starting role. I think he started the last 8-10 games, something like that in Seattle. And he played really, really well. So I think him and Antoine Winfield. They're going to be a really good twosome, I think, back there at safety in that secondary. And I think you're going to see improved play out of that secondary, just bringing him on board. He's a baller.
I agree as well. Like Ryan Neal, you look at even his PFF rating, he's number 3 in safeties. Like, holy shit. And the one thing I saw Ryan Neal, he's like, man, this is like my second home. I'm like Buccaneers are going to give me opportunity as a starter. I think Ryan Neal is going to be. I think he's going to be a great leader for this team, and I think he's going to be a big playmaker this year. Like, I think I feel like people are undervaluating still because Ryan Neal, I think he's going to have a huge impact in the secondary with Terry Winfield on the side. Man, I think it's going to be. I think our secondary, because it's something that we struggled overall last year. I think it's going to be drastically improved this year.
Well, here's something to think about. In the draft, if the kid from Alabama, Mr. Brian Branch, if he is on the board,
yeah.
Do you take him at 19? Think about your secondary with Brian Branch. Okay, you have Carlton Davis and Jamal Dean as your corners. You can put Branch in the slot, and then Ryan Neal and Antoine Winfield at safety. That's a damn good starting secondary.
That'd be a really strong secondary. But I'd have to say no because there's so many needs that need to be met in secondary. Because secondary is pretty solid right now.
Yeah,
in my opinion, right now our the one thing I'm super concerned with is the offensive line because we lost so many players from this year and last year. I think we need to focus on that left side. Like right now with Donovan Smith gone, people they're not realizing how much impact he's made. He's been there for a long time. It was pretty consistent for a while. And that left side is going to have to be addressed very soon because right now we have Brandon Walden and some other practice squad member that was activated last year. Yeah. Can't remember his name right now, but honestly, if I'm Tampa, I'm taking Peter's. I'm taking Peter the left tackle. I said
from Northwestern, Skoronski from Northwestern.
Yes, yeah. I had a hard time with his last name, but yes, I'll be taking him at 19 or Jawan Jones from Ohio State. He's day 2 pick, but I'd be reaching at this point. We got to whoever is the best available tackle for the left side. I'd be taking him.
Yeah,
because it's just a huge need.
Well, right now, Tristan Wirfs is going to move to the left side. I think when the Bucs started their off-season conditioning program this week, he was putting in a little work at that left tackle spot. So Wirfs is probably going to be the guy on the left side. And then you have Nick Leverett at the guard, Ryan Jensen at center. Right now, Matt Filer was probably going to be the right guard, new acquisition. And then Brandon Walton or Luke Gedeke at tackle. The top 3 rated tackles in the draft, they are really good. You've got Paris Johnson from Ohio State, Skoronski from Northwestern, and then Broderick Jones from Georgia. And they're going to be off the board by the time the Bucs pick at 19. Jason Light has said that the Bucs aren't moving up. They're not going to trade up just to get into a better position to, pick a tackle or, a defensive back or whatever it is that their strategy might be. So I looked at the available players, and I think at 19, with those 3 tackles off the board, your best pick is probably going to be Darnell Wright from Tennessee. Now, a lot of people have never heard that name, but he's one of those guys that has a lot of versatility. He can play guard and tackle. He plays on the right side of the line. He's very nimble, quick, 6'5", 335, and it would not surprise me if they take him with that 19th pick. Now that may be a bit of a reach because he's projected to go late first round, early second round. But I think he is somebody that could come in and probably do a pretty decent job of holding down, that right tackle spot.
Well, that's actually, I think that'd be the best scenario for the Bucks because I know they mentioned a lot the worst going to left side. I definitely have concerns about that because the whole. Cause I used to be a lineman in high school. I know it's a whole different scenario playing different sides. He probably did for high school and college like that, but it's definitely gonna be a transition. That's why I was like kind of hoping they wouldn't do that. But if they're going with that scenario, I think that's probably the best way to go is the right side and grab someone that's more versatile because that's why they drafted Gedeke because how versatile he was. He played tackle, he played guard, so I think that's a very good possibility for the Bucks. I just don't think a safety or even he would not go this late, but Rashard Robinson. I think we need to address needs, and Jason Light's always addressing needs instead of wants. So I don't say I'm not even entertaining these running backs, receivers, or because it doesn't make sense.
It doesn't, and I think the Bucks will take a running back, but it's probably going to be in the 4th or 5th round. They may take a wide receiver in the 7th round. Just to add some depth. But one guy to keep an eye on. You mentioned Robinson from Alabama. Of course, he's one of the best running backs in the draft. I think the kid from Kansas, or might be Kansas State he played, Deuce Vaughn, led FBS in rushing yards, 1,935 yards this past season. The only knock on Deuce Vaughn is his size. He is 5'5", 175. But the kid has great speed, is a dual threat, can catch the ball, can run with the ball, quick on his feet. He's excelled at every single level that he has played, and somebody is going to take a chance on him. And if you can get somebody like a Deuce Vaughn to come in, with Rachaad White, Keyshawn Vaughn, kind of round out the running back room, I would not be opposed to that. I think Vaughn could be a really good role player for the Bucks.
You know what? I've actually looked at Deuce Vaughn, and I think he'd be an awesome addition to the Buccaneers because we won't have to go too high to get him. And obviously, you get the Vaughn runners because we have Vaughn on our team, so it'll kind of work out.
That's right. That's right.
And Deuce Vaughn, he's actually one of the shortest running backs.
Yes.
So honestly, if Deuce Vaughn goes to who I think he will be, I say comparison, I think he'd be like a Darren Sproles. Who Drew Brees, when he got traded to the Eagles, he said this is a once-a-generational type of player. So Deuce Vaughn could have that similar potential. So he's like he'd be worth like at least a 4th or 5th round pick.
Yeah, and in my mock draft that I kind of did, a couple of days ago, looking at the available players and what the Bucks' needs are and how to slot them and who they might pick, I had him going in the 5th round to the Bucks, Deuce Vaughn. So that's a name and kind of somebody to keep your eye on as the draft unfolds. Yeah,
Deuce Vaughn, I really that'd be a great addition. I honestly, running back room would be great. And actually, it's going to be interesting. You're going to see some news, especially with the XFL, because there's a lot of players that contracts are going to be up soon because the league's starting to unfold now. Their championship is, I believe, next week now. So
yeah,
there's going to be some option there for the Bucks as well. I think they're probably getting more signed to the undrafted free agents. So it'd probably be like after the draft, but yeah, that's going to be some interesting prospects there as well.
Yeah. Now I know you and I have had some conversations privately, and you are a big proponent of the Bucs drafting a quarterback in this draft. So what do you think about Hendon Hooker, the quarterback from Tennessee, maybe in the 5th or 6th round for the Bucs?
Herndon Hooker. If he dropped that low, I think honest, I don't see him going lower than the 2nd round. If I'm my personally, because there's a lot of teams that reach. But if he dropped that low, it wouldn't even be a question of mine. I would take him. That's like if he dropped in the 5th round, because I would like to get Deuce in the 4th round. And in the 5th round, I want it'd be awesome to get quarterback to bring more competition for well for Kyle Trask and the Baker Mayfield competition. Or if Herndon Hooker is not there, which I kind of see him go in the 2nd or 3rd round, I would take Bennett. Stephon Bennett, like the guy he's not a big dude, so there's a lot of concerns with that, and he's kind of short for a quarterback. But Drew Brees was a very short guy too. So I honestly would take either him or Hooker if they were there.
Well, it's going to be interesting with Hooker because, he had that terrible injury in the South Carolina game, and that was in November. And I read a report on him yesterday, and he will be ready for training camp, he says. He's going to be almost 100% and ready to go. So I think with that bit of news, that kind of changes things a little bit as far as where he may go in the draft. If it was going to be a longer rehab process, I think he's probably a 5th or 6th round guy. Yeah. And, okay, maybe we'll start working with him, when the season starts, or, you can put him on the, on the IR for a little bit of the season and then maybe put him on the practice squad. If you don't want to take a roster spot for him. The other thing too, while we're talking about quarterbacks, that's interesting is, due to the San Francisco fiasco in their playoff game against Philadelphia, you're going to be able to dress 3 quarterbacks now on game day. So that's going to change, the roster dynamics, and a lot of these guys that were maybe on the practice squad or didn't dress as a 3rd quarterback are now going to dress, on game day. So Hooker's got a lot of potential. 58 touchdown passes in college, only 6 interceptions. Whether he'll be a good NFL player, that remains to be seen. But he's got everything that you look for, as far as quarterback play goes.
Yeah, and I've taken a couple of looks, but what do you? Because he is definitely a possibility. The Bucs could take, because they definitely said they wouldn't be scared to take a quarterback. I don't really see him taking one, but if they did, I would take maybe 2nd or 3rd round, but realistically, I think it's going to be 5th. But if let's say they did take one in the 2nd round, it was Hooker. What do you think of him as a leader, like personally?
I think there wouldn't be any problems with him. He obviously did a great job with leading that Tennessee club. Tennessee had the best season they've had in years with him as the helm. I think leadership too. It's funny you mentioned that because that's another passion of mine. I'm writing a book on leadership. Do a lot of articles for different publications on leadership. That is something that it's kind of learned. It's difficult to go into a position and all of a sudden hold your hand up and say, okay, I'm the leader. Look at me. Everybody follow me. Because leadership is something where you have to earn that. Okay. The folks around you that are following you, they have to respect you. And you have to garner that respect and earn that by the way you carry yourself, by your work ethic, your work habits. Are you the first guy in and the last guy to leave, or are you skating out early every day, in practice, or are you rolling in late every day? And, you demand things of the players around you or of the people around you, but then you're not walking the walk. You talk the talk, but you don't walk the walk. So I think leadership is something that, is constantly evolving. and you're constantly learning, and eventually everything just clicks for you, in that aspect. So I think he'd be fine, but he obviously will have to earn that respect, um, earn that leadership role. And if he does the things that he needs to do, he'll be fine.
Yeah, no, and leadership to me is a mindset. It's I'm gonna do the best of my abilities to lead these guys, to help them out. Like it's a different scenario, but like even for me, like I'm a leader of my autistic community, and when people come to me for advice or anything, I have that mindset like I'm gonna do the best of my ability to help these guys, and that's for action,
Right.
everything like that. So it's like you said, you got to earn it, and it's a mindset. You can't just it's not just playing. It's doing everything you can, helping the guys that maybe are struggling or working, spend some extra time to receivers and
Yeah.
guys that count on you. So it's a mindset and something that you got to earn.
Yeah, and there's a lot that goes into it, as well. You got to kind of be a cheerleader. You got to give guys pep talks. When they might need it. You got to be that guy that maybe people want to talk to, or just voice a concern to. A lot goes into it. There's a lot you got to manage, but then again, that goes with the position. So if you're going to be a quarterback in the NFL, that goes with the territory.
Yeah, and honestly, another guy. Honestly, I would love for the Bucks to give him the fifth round because this guy is probably gonna go really late. Um, actually, there's two guys I would like to take possibly. Stephon Bennett did some great things in Georgia, back-to-back national championship. Obviously, he had a very great offensive line and a great defense. But I love his leadership, and he played outstanding. He had 10 rushing touchdowns, around 4,000 yards, throwing like 30 something TDs. I think he actually had 26 touchdowns. But the guy said, like, I love his mobility as well and his leadership as a quarterback. That's why I admire most about him, which is very important because sometimes you don't have to be a superstar to be a really good quarterback.
Well, that is true. A couple of things about Bennett, though, concern me, and you hit on one. Is he played behind, you know, one of the best offensive lines in college football, and probably one of the best offensive lines the last couple of years in college football. He's going to go into a situation, he's not going to have that kind of talent at every position across the offensive line. So that's going to be a big adjustment for him. And then his size. I think he may be a little bigger than Drew Brees, but not by much. And those shorter quarterbacks generally struggle a little bit, in today's NFL. Years ago, Doug Flutie played in the NFL. He was all 5'9", 5'10", dripping wet. I mean, and he was a decent quarterback for a few years when he played in the NFL. Had a few good seasons, with the Buffalo Bills. But the way the NFL offensive has changed, the way the quarterback play has changed, I think it's just more challenging for guys like Stetson Bennett, his physical makeup. It's harder for them, to be successful in the league. Not saying that it can't happen, but it's just more challenging for them, in today's NFL offensive environment.
Now, I 100% agree. It's going to be a little more difficult. Bennett, that's why I would take him late because I don't think he'd be, honestly, I don't think he'd be the starter, but let's say Baker, he doesn't work out. He wasn't as we thought. He didn't reach his potential. He was not bad, but he wasn't good either. And Bennett has an opportunity in his second year to step up as a starter. That's a possibility I see. Or going to a situation like the Tennessee, Ryan Tannehill. who is on his last year, probably isn't going to get resigned. So Bennett's best option is to spend a year behind the quarterback because he's going to have to adjust, and it's going to be a big adjustment for him not having the best offensive line. But he has great potential, and he'd be worth a fifth round pick.
Yeah, somebody's going to take a flyer on him, and they'll give him an opportunity. I don't know that he's going to come in to a starting role. I think, as you said, he's probably going to be a backup for a couple of years. But we'll see how he learns and grows and develops, and I mean, who knows? Tom Brady was a 6th round pick. He didn't start his first year. He actually got an opportunity due to an injury and played his first snap, never looked back. So, I mean, you just never know, how the chips are going to fall. And, you won't know till you take that first snap and, throw that first pass, play that first down, and see how it goes.
Yeah, exactly. But there's another quarterback that I really like. Actually, you mentioned him, and since you mentioned him, and then I did research, I was like, you know what, this guy is pretty good. He has great potential. Max Duggins from TCU. What he did,
Yes.
what the hell? Like TCU, I forgot about him. I'm like, TCU. Who the hell is this?
Yeah, he did really, really well with that team. Great leader. I mean, just going to the championship game, I mean, was monumental for TCU because that is such a small school, and they don't have the recruiting power and the Neal money that a lot of the other big schools have. But Dugan, when first came out and said he was entering the draft and all that, he was slated for 6th round or so. But now that we're getting closer to the draft, he's slowly creeping up on some draft boards, and I think he's going to probably be off in the board probably in the 4th round, maybe 5th round at the latest.
Yeah, I think if we really wanted to take quarterback, I would take a flyer on him in the 4th or 5th round. A 4th round, I feel like is a little high for quarterback, especially in our situation.
Yeah.
But 5th round, I think that's like the 5th and 7th. That's where I would take a quarterback. And Max Duggins, if he's still there, you gotta take him. Like this guy, like what he's able to do, it's pretty insane. Because that just doesn't happen. TCU, I can't remember last time they were in a national championship, or if they ever were in one.
They never were. They've had really, really good teams. They have a good program, but they always, 10-2, 11-2, 10-3, something like that. That's normally, where they finish. Very competitive every game, but they end up, losing, to a Texas, to Texas A&M or some big school that they play, and that's usually pretty close. I mean they don't get blown out. They handle themselves well, but they got a good program there, and Max, I think he'll do well. I think in the NFL, I think he'll do better than Stetson Bennett, to be honest with you.
I would say Bennett's he has a lot of things. He has a lot of trials to go through. Especially just his height and obviously playing the best offensive line, he's gonna have a lot less opportunities than most of these other quarterbacks. Like if he would have the size and everything, he would automatically be a 1st round pick. But he's gonna have to work for it.
Yeah, and that's okay. That's what it's about. Nothing should be handed to you. I don't care if you're a number 1 pick. You ought to come in, work. Let's evaluate the work that you put in, look at your work ethic, and then we'll determine, okay, you're going to start, not start. You're going to, be a role player. You're going to be a reserve. What's your role on this team? But everything has got to be earned through. performance.
Some of those later guys can be, most of them they have a better chance of being a starter than a quality starter than the first round picks. Like, I got to mention this guy. You might have heard of him if you pay attention to XFL, but Paxton Lynch was a first round pick in 2016 for the Denver Broncos. Played 5 games and he didn't start for him again. And then he went to the USFL, was bench. He got a starter everywhere he went. USFL, XFL. He sucked in every one of them. I was kind of surprised how bad he did, actually. And it kind of shows you, like, first-round picks sometimes can be overvalued. Just because you're a first-round pick doesn't mean nothing. You got to work for every opportunity. So if you're a first-round pick, I don't think that should give you free way, like, okay, you're good, bro. You earned a starting job. It's like you got to earn it every snap, every practice. And that, I think sometimes first round picks can be overvalued like that.
Yeah. You remember Jamarcus Russell? I mean,
yeah.
Horrible. I mean, great quarterback at LSU, signed that big contract, and he thought he never had to go into the weight room again a day in his life. I mean, he was pathetic. His work ethic was awful. His study habits weren't good. He was just a train wreck. And, he started, I don't even know how many games he started. It wasn't a ton. And the Raiders said, we're done. And he never played much again after that.
Yeah, he has to be at least top 5 in the worst, first round draft busts. Like,
he's right up there. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really bad.
Yeah. Yeah, not good. And you run into that. Another guy, I can't remember. I think he was a first round pick, is Maurice Clarett from Ohio State. Great running back, came with all kinds of accolades, drafted by the Denver Broncos, and just walked into camp, didn't want to work for anything, and just thought he should be handed the starting running back job. I mean, he had, some guys hanging around him that weren't really great influence on him. I mean, he would go to practice and he would have booze in his water bottle. I mean, on the practice field. I mean, you just can't imagine that, but it's the truth. And he was just, yeah. I don't think he played more than a season or two. And minimal touches. So
that's pretty insane. Was he a first round pick too?
I don't recall. I believe he was very high pick. I'm not a first round. He was very high pick.
That's like, it's kind of hard to imagine that someone that's like, okay, I'm good. I don't need to go to training camp. Just give me a starting job, bro. You see what I could do in college.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, welcome to the NFL, kids. Totally different world here.
And now, to kind of finish up, I want to talk about something that I've actually just learned about, and it's pretty insane. I can't believe I haven't heard this more about. Bo Jackson almost became a Tampa Bay Buccaneer. Yeah, he was technically drafted by the Buccaneers, but he never signed it because they actually flew him in for a visit. And Bo Jackson was told by the Buccaneers, they checked in with the baseball league and the BFA, and they said, yeah, you're good. You won't get in trouble for visiting to consider being drafted. The Buccaneers lied. They never did that. I say this, at least what Bo Jackson said. I'm not sure about the whole story, but Bo Jackson did not sign. He did not sign that. Did not agree to be drafted by the Buccaneers, and I think that probably had to be the biggest bust in NFL history.
Well, Bo Jackson, though, he went on to have a pretty decent NFL career till the injuries took over. He made his mark with the Raiders and was a really, really good back for a few years. And then the injuries took over. And he was just as good a baseball player as he was a football player. I mean, you talk about a true two-sport athlete. I mean, Bo Jackson was the two-sport athlete. Just very good football and baseball. I'll never forget one play on a Monday night game. Brian Bosworth, linebacker from Oklahoma, who was another bust. A lot of injuries and just never played well in the had the career in the NFL that he did at Oklahoma. But he was a beast out of Oklahoma when he played. Nasty, all over the field, dominated games, and he played for the Seahawks. And the Raiders were playing the Seahawks on a Monday night game, and Bo Jackson took the ball and he ran Bosworth right over, just ran him right into the ground. And I'll never forget that play. It's like, yeah, that's Bo Jackson. And I think Bo finished with like 200 and some yards rushing, maybe that game, if I'm thinking of the right game. But yeah, he was awesome.
Yeah, that's why I was like, man, why did because the owner was Cloverhouse.
Yes.
I'm like, man, I feel like it's kind of true. Like, there's some truth to that. I'm like, this is true, bro. Why did you have to ruin it, man? We could have had Bo Jackson. We might have won at least 6 games in a season because back in the '80s we were not good at all. We didn't even get good until Tony Dungy came the head coach. And back, like I would say, I'm gonna say like 91 or 90, I think he came in.
No, Dungy was a lot later than that. There was a really dark era of Bucs football. Of course, you know about the 26-game losing streak to start the franchise in 76-77. They lost 26 games in a row, and under John McKay. And then McKay kind of he was a college coach from USC, kind of got things turned around. And the Bucs actually made it to the NFC Championship game. I think it was maybe 1980, 81, and they were shut out by the Rams 9-0. And that was when Doug Williams was quarterback. And the Rams went on to the Super Bowl that year. I think they eventually lost to the Steelers. But after that, McKay left, and then that's when things really went south for the Bucs. And they were never able to really get out of that until Tony Dungy came in the late 90s. So there was a good 15-year period there, 15, 16, 17 years where the Bucs were the dregs of the NFL literally year in and year out.
Yeah, that's why I'm really glad the Glazers came in because they bought it. I believe Cloverfield. I'd say he was kind of done the Bucs. He was very. He was like in his 80s at that point, and he was or 70s around that. And he's like, you know what? I think I'm just gonna sell this. Go in retirement basically. And the Glazers took over and hired Tony Dungy, and they were able to turn around. And the rest is history. John Gruden took over. Tony Dungy built the defense, but John Gruden helped get the offensive philosophy and got Buccaneers the very first Super Bowl win for Brad Johnson.
Yeah, that was Dungy's team that Gruden won the Super Bowl with. Obviously Gruden tweaked things a little bit, but those were Dungy's players, and that's one of the reasons why Dungy is so revered in Tampa. He's the one that got the franchise turned around and essentially put the roster together. That won that Super Bowl.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Tony Dungy, that's why I always consider him really that was his Super Bowl team. Like, honestly, he deserves a ring. John Gruden definitely tweaks things because we were struggling in offense. But Tony Dungy built our team, defense, his philosophies, everything, man. He was just he's a great coach. I wish we would have kept him. I wish we would not fire him, but at least gave him an exception. Like, this guy, we were not good. And he helped bring us to a competitive team and brought in legends like Darrell Brooks, Sapp, John Lynch. It's incredible. And yeah, I'm glad he got his ring with the Colts, but I'm kind of salty because I wish it would have been Bucs.
Yeah, well, that happens in sports a lot. You put in a lot of time, you work hard to build a roster, get the team up to championship caliber, and then something happens and you're out. It's unfortunate that it worked out that way, but Tony landed well. We got a Super Bowl ring, as you said, and he's got a great career now with his broadcasting. So
it worked out for everybody. He got his ring a couple years later, and the Buccaneers got their ring with John Gruden. And I want to get your perspective real quick. Sean Payton. Now, this is something that I've kind of talked about actually in my latest video. Honestly, I think he's very comparable to John Gruden. I believe they're decent coaches, but I put them like a little bit above average because I felt like they have really good teams. They have quarterbacks like John Payton had Drew Brees, who is he's top 3 in the past 20 years of all the quarterbacks. I put him like Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, and it'd be Drew Brees, obviously. And John Gruden, he had that defense. Now, he didn't have the quarterback, but he had a hell of a team. What's your thoughts on it? You think Sean Payton, do you think he's earned hype? Like, oh, he's one of the best coaches we've seen? Or you think Drew Brees should get more credit for what Sean Payton got?
No, I think Sean Payton's one of the top coaches of this last decade. The same way with Bill Belichick and Tom Brady. At the end of the day, Belichick is not as successful as a coach without Brady, and Brady's not nearly as successful without Belichick. And it's the same way with Peyton and Brees. Drew Brees doesn't have the success he has unless Sean Payton's the coach, and Sean developed that offensive philosophy that served Drew Brees well. And Payton's not the coach he is without Drew Brees, so they kind of work together hand in hand. But I think you look at the overall track record, and we've gotten to the point in sports where if you're not winning a championship every year, if you're not in a championship every year, people discount and discredit you for what you have done. Oh yeah, you're a good coach, but you're not a Hall of Fame coach. I mean, believe it or not, people were having those discussions about Andy Reid before he won the Super Bowl with Kansas City. They were saying, "Oh yeah, he's not a Hall of Fame coach." Well, the guy has a 6.65 or whatever it is winning percentage all time. Had great success in Philadelphia, good success in Kansas City. How do you say this guy's not, a Hall of Fame coach? Yeah, he's lost in the championship game a few times, but that happens.
It does, and what he's able to do is insane.
Yeah.
Michael Vick, he was able to help Michael Vick. Vick was a good player, but I don't believe Andy Reid he would have been as good as he was because it showed after his imprisonment, when he went to, he was not the same. And Andy Reid was able to do. He led multiple quarterbacks to Super Bowl. Donovan Smith, Michael Vick, and then when he went to Kansas City, he got Alex Smith, and they were competitive.
Yeah.
Because Smith, I think him and under Andy Reid, they were very great together. Because Alex Smith struggled a lot in 49ers, which is why he was let go or traded to the Kansas City Chiefs. And they, I believe they went to a championship too. They made the multiple playoffs. They were competitive. That's why Andy Reid, I think, deserves a lot of credit. Pat Mahomes is, without doubt, I think, going to be the greatest quarterback in history. I think it'll take a while, like 10 years or something, but be considered that. But Pat Mahomes, I don't think would be as good as he was without Andy Reid, because Andy Reid he's a special coach. I think he's a top coach in NFL history.
Yeah, and it's the same way with Sean Payton. I mean, when you have talk about great coaches of this era, I think Sean Payton is right up there. Now, we're going to really see what kind of coach Sean Payton is in the next couple of seasons. Going to a Denver team that has, kind of struggled the last couple of years. One thing that Sean will do is give that team an offensive identity, which they did not have last year. And anytime you have Russell Wilson, a quarterback, that's a good starting point. So, I think Sean will, do well in Denver. It might take him, just a little bit to get things figured out. But Denver is going to be much improved this season. And then you're going to have 4 teams in that AFC West. You're going to have the Chargers, the Chiefs, the Broncos, and then there's going to be
a hell of a division. It's crazy how tough that division is.
Right. And then when you look at, Andy Reid and Sean Payton, those two guys going head-to-head coaching against each other, twice a year. That's very compelling. I mean, as a football fan, for me, so Sean Payton is one of the best coaches. You can't not give him the credit, that he deserves. He's absolutely right up there. He'll be in the Hall of Fame. He doesn't really need to do any more, in my opinion.
He doesn't. He could retire right now. He'd be a Hall of Famer without question. Sean Payton, I'd say he's more like a John Gruden type. I think Drew Brees, in my opinion, I think he deserves a lot more credit because what he's able to do is insane. He had 4 years of 5,000 yards. The Saints before Drew Brees and Sean Payton, they were nothing. They didn't even look good. You wouldn't hear their names. They're a team you wouldn't mention. Drew Brees, I just think Sean Payton took away a lot of his weapons. Jimmy Graham, Brandon Cooks. Kenny Stills, he after he left, he wasn't that good, so he's more questionable. And one weapon that Drew Brees loved, and you could see the disappointment when he left. Darren Sproles. It just seemed like Sean Payton he did not do Drew Brees any favors. The only consistent weapon he had was Michael Thomas, and that was more towards the end of his career when he was in his mid-30s.
Yeah, but still, though, Sean was able to bring in some playmakers. And it just goes to show you sometimes you don't need all-star players at every single position to win. As long as you have good role players and they buy into your offensive philosophy and you're able to get those players to maybe take a role on the team that maybe is not best for that player, but hey, this is going to help the team win. That's what coaching is. And that's what makes, Sean Payton a good coach.
Yeah, I still have my questions about him, but we'll see where he does with Broncos because Russell needs a coach that will put him to gear because I think Russell lost his touch a little bit. So we're going to see how he does with Denver Broncos because this will be a big test for him. Because obviously he didn't have a quarterback in the Saints. Winston, well, we all know what Winston is. But we're going to see what he can do with Russell Wilson because Wilson has been a good quarterback before this season, this previous season, because he won the Super Bowl. He helped Seattle go to multiple playoff games. So we're going to see how him and Sean Payton work with each other.
And I think they'll be fine. I put more of the losing season this past year on Denver on their coach, Nathaniel Hackett, than I do Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
Hackett was horrible head coach. Horrible. There's coaches in the NFL, they're good coordinators, but put them into a head coach role and they're lost. They have no idea how to manage things because when you're a head coach, you're basically just a manager and you have all these other coaches underneath you and you got to make sure that they're doing what they need to do. You're not really responsible for one main area of the team. And I thought Russell Wilson just didn't have the coaching, didn't have the support. They didn't play to his skill set. They were constantly changing up their offensive philosophy. One game you want to pound the ball. Then the next game, you want to have Russell Wilson throw it downfield, 30 times. The next game, you're doing something else. That's not a recipe for success. And Sean Payton will figure out, okay, what do we need to do here with Russ Wilson to get him back on track to be a marquee quarterback? Sean Payton will figure that out, and Russell Wilson will have a much better season this year than he did last year.
Yeah, there's a lot of mismanagement I saw, and we'll see if they can hack it this year.
Yeah, no pun intended. Yes.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be an interesting season overall. I'll tell you, one game I'm actually really excited for is the Buccaneers versus the Vikings, because I grew up a Vikings fan, and so my family are Vikings fans. So it's going to be a lot of screaming and a lot of shit talking, because I'm.
That will be a good game, and with Kirk Cousins, they're in Minnesota. You never know what you're going to get from old Kirk. He has a tendency sometimes to fold up in big games, in big spots. So, I mean, he's been relatively consistent, but you can't win the big one. You can't, you can't win the big game. He's slightly above average, I think, for an NFL quarterback. But credit to him, that man has banked some cash during his NFL career. I mean, I don't know how he does it, but if you look at the list of quarterback earnings, I mean, he's close to the top throughout his career, the money that he's made. So, hey, kudos to him. He has a great agent, or, he's a smooth talker. Or, something's going on there.
Yeah, and Kirk Cousins, like, he looks good on paper, 4,000 yards, 4,000 yards every year. I watched Kirk. He does it overall. He plays good in some games, but consistently he doesn't do it in each game. Like, there's some games where he just throws 3 interceptions. I say, and he gets his yards from like late games when it's already too late to kind of catch up, and because the team lets him get those yards.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how, because some teams go by statistics instead of actually watching him play. Minnesota is not getting a taste of Washington did. Why? Now they're like, oh, why did Washington really let him go? Now you kind of know why. Yeah. He's a good statistic quarterback. But as someone that can win the big games in prime time, he's like 1-9 in the playoffs. He's 1-3. So it kind of shows there kind of what kind of quarterback he is.
Yep. Yeah, 100%. I am not a big Kirk Cousins fan. I'll ride with Baker all day.
Yeah. I'd much rather have Baker than Kirk Cousins, because at least Baker has that like leadership mentality, and he, as people say, he has that dog.
Yeah, he's a fighter. I mean, if you're at war, he's a guy you want in the foxhole right next to you.
Yeah, and that's what you need as a leader. And Baker, regardless, like, that's why I love his leadership. He seems like he's matured a lot as a person and as a leader. And I think that's going to reflect a lot as a player.
Yeah. I think these last couple of years, with the injuries and him having time to really assess everything, I think he did some self-introspection, as, all good leaders do from time to time, and, maybe change some things up a little bit. And, I think we'll see a little bit of a different Baker this season in Tampa than what we have seen in the past.
Now, to finish up podcast, I want to ask you, what do you expect from Baker this season?
I expect him to start 16 games. I expect him to throw for about 25 touchdown passes. He's got 2 good wide receivers, the best wide receivers that he's ever played with in the NFL is a combo, and Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. So he has got to stay healthy. You've got Wirfs on that left side to protect him. I think you'll have a good running game with Rashad White. I think Canales, the offensive coordinator, is the kind of coach that is going to figure out what you do well as a quarterback and then play to those strengths. So we're not going to see a lot of crazy stuff from Baker where we're scratching our heads thinking, now why would they call that? Why would he throw that pass? Why would this play be called? I think Canales is going to keep it close to the vest. Let's do what serves Baker well, and let's win some games. But I think Baker's going to have a big season. I think he'll be close to that playoff season in Cleveland when he took the Browns to the playoffs. He had 26 touchdown passes, 8 interceptions, passed for well over 4,000 yards. I think we're going to see that type of season from Baker.
I agree 100%. And Baker doesn't have to be a superstar because he has weapons around him. That's why I love Dave Canales. He's like, man, we don't need a quarterback to be the main weapon. We use the weapons around him. Mike Evans, Godwin, Rashad White, Cade Otton, who I think is developing a really good tight end.
Yes, I agree.
And Baker has the weapons, and he has a great play card that will play to his strength. Kevin Siskowski, when I watched him as a coordinator when I was a Vikings fan, he was not good at play calls. He was it wasn't very good.
Mm-hmm.
And actually that's one of the reasons why we didn't make the playoffs one year. Obviously Kirk Cousins was a concern, but his play calling was not impressive.
Mm-hmm.
And I think honestly, having a play call like David Canales, I think it's going to help Baker dramatically. And Todd Bowles, I think he needs to focus more on defense and just improve. I think as a head coach, I think he'd be better focusing on defense because he's struggling in that department, as you see with the Jets. And last year, it was very much of a struggle. I think he'll be better. I think it'll be better overall since Todd Bowles got a staff and Tom Brady isn't the main guy there because there's a lot going on with Brady last year. I think overall this team is going to be. I think it's a playoff contending team. I wouldn't say Super Bowl, but I would say playoff contending at the very least.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And from now until when the season starts, all you're going to hear is, oh, well, the Bucs are on the down. They're only going to win 5 or 6 games. These national pundits, these guys on ESPN and the NFL Network that are paid 6 figures to, spew their nonsense on a daily basis. They have no idea what they're talking about when it comes to the Buccaneers. Absolutely none. Okay, the Bucs are better than the Atlanta Falcons. They're better than the Carolina Panthers. The only team that can compete with them right now is New Orleans, and that's because of 2 factors. The Carr factor, quarterback, and the Saints have a really good defense. So it wouldn't surprise me if the Saints, win the division. But I think the Bucs will contend for the division again, and as you said, possibly make the playoffs. There's enough talent on that team to do that.
Yeah, exactly. And the Saints always been paying their necks for a long time. And I think that will continue, especially Derek Carr. And you mentioned they have a very good defense. But I'm going to put another team in there. Carolina Panthers. Carolina Panthers, Frank Reich. I was a very big fan of him as the head coach of the Colts. I think he got short end of the stick because the owner there has been said to get too involved in the team. I think Frank Reich is building a very good coaching staff, and they already have a good defense, and now they're building their offense. Van Phelan as a receiver, but they're taking a big risk of trading DJ Moore and getting that top pick. But I think they'll be a contending team. Depending on who they draft is going to be interesting. But I put the Panthers there as well. I feel like it's going to be tough with the Bucs, Saints, and Panthers. Falcons, I'm not even going to consider them because they have the Desmond Riddler, who they're saying is going to be the main guy, and I just don't see him panning out. So I think it's going to be the Bucs, Saints, and Panthers that are really going to be contending for that number 1 spot.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, but I still think the Bucks have a better roster than the Panthers.
Oh,
Uh,
100%.
yeah. So if I was to handicap the division right now, I would go Saints, Bucks, Panthers, Falcons. Right now. Now that may
Yeah.
change, as the season opens or as we get into training camp and we see how the roster shuffling goes on now. That's the way I see it.
Yeah, I agree. I kind of agree. I believe it'll be tough, but I'm going by potential. Right now, without seeing anybody, we have to put the Saints first because Buccaneers still they have a lot of new guys coming in since we lost so many players in the offseason. Um, Saints, they're going to be a very tough team to play against because they got top defense and they just upgrade top quarterback, I believe.
Right.
The Buccaneers, I believe they're going to be. I think they're going to be number one. I think how they build the defense is phenomenal. I think they upgrade actually. Um, like we've signed our top guys, which were supposed to go for agency. We're only able to keep the one or the other, but we're able to keep both Dean and David. And our defense overall is looking pretty good. That defensive line position is concerning, and the offensive line. But I think once we clean that up, I think we're looking at the number one spot in the NFC South.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with that, and I think they'll shore that up. Those positions, offensive line and defensive line, in the draft. I still think they're going to go offensive line probably with their first pick, then the defensive line, and then we'll address some other needs. But if they don't get those needs addressed in the draft, there's always a lot of free agents that are going to be available. One thing that'll be interesting as we get closer to the season is you used to have 2 or 3 cut down days. Now everybody gets cut at the same time. So you're literally going to trim your roster from 90 to 53 in one day. And you're going to have all 32 teams doing that. So that's going to be a crazy, crazy time. And, a crazy day is, guys get cut and picked up and moved. So
that's good. It's going to be insane. It's going to be crazy. I'm happy for the players because that means they'll get a lot more opportunities than before. But I feel like this is kind of to make it like a huge event. I feel like it's. I think NFLs are doing this because obviously their business. They want to make the most money, so I think they're gonna try to advocate this day as like cut day, a big thing, so they can make more revenue in that and to make it a little more interesting.
Well, I think what it has to do with is there's too many guys getting hurt in preseason, so you're going to be able to keep all these guys on the roster that aren't going to make your team, but you don't want to play your starters. So you're going to see less starters playing in the preseason, which means the first 4 weeks of the NFL season are going to be really sloppy because you're going to have guys that haven't played much together. Guys still getting a feel for the offense, for their new offensive line teammates. So the first 4 weeks are going to be really sloppy. But this is a move just to prevent some injuries and to keep a fully loaded roster for the preseason games, so they don't have to run their starters out there as much as they did prior.
Yeah, actually, that's a good point. I really haven't thought about that too much. Actually, it's a great point because they want to put their starters in because they have so many players they still got to try out and see if they're either practice squad members or they're actually going to be on the roster. And obviously, some are going to get cut. That's a good point. Also, I just followed this when you were talking about preseason. We will get our first look at the Baker Mayfield offense.
Yeah, I mean it's always exciting. I almost always look forward as much to the first preseason game as I do the first regular season game, just to get a quick peek at the new guys and what the offense is going to look like, what the defense is going to look like. Baker may not even play that first game. depending on what happens between now and that first preseason game. A lot of guys. Last year Brady didn't play, I don't think, till maybe the third preseason game. Took a few snaps, might have taken a few in the second game, but he didn't play at all in the first game. So whether Baker plays or not in that first game, it's 50-50 right now. But
yeah, it depends. I honestly think Baker's going to win the job. Kyle Trask, he doesn't. He just like he doesn't. He's not a guy that gets noticed, or I feel like isn't just. He's not a very like alpha leader type. Like sometimes I'm like, who is that? Oh yeah, it's Kyle Trask. Like it's just like he's not a guy you notice a whole lot. That's why I was really excited. I was kind of like, hopefully Kyle Trask, hopefully learned enough from Tom Brady. There's a lot of things I heard he's a slow learner as well, so it's going to be it's interesting to see his development. To see how he pans out from 2 years learning under Brady. But my personal opinion, I think Baker. I think he's a better quarterback, and I think he's going to win the job based on his experience and his skill level.
Yeah, I agree. But Baker should win the job, and it really shouldn't be much of a competition. What I'm kind of going to look at is, okay, how has Kyle Trask improved? What has he done maybe from last preseason to this preseason? And it's hard to really gauge people in preseason because the defenses are so vanilla, the offenses are so vanilla. I mean, you really don't get a good feel for maybe how this person is developing or that person's developing. A lot of that's done in practice and OTAs and mini camp and those kind of things. But I agree. Baker should win the starting job. Yeah, I think Trask will probably be the backup, and we'll see where that takes us.
And honestly, I think Kyle Trask will end up. I think he'll be. I think he'll be a really good backup. And he'll have looks like he's going to get like Todd Bowles and Jason Light have said. They're going to give Kyle Trask as many opportunities as Baker. So I expect to see a lot of looks of him in preseason with the first team because that's what some fans and a lot of people have mentioned. Kyle Trask hasn't really played the first team a whole lot. So we're probably going to see that a lot. That's why Baker might not even play the preseason a whole lot because Kyle Trask is going to get a lot of looks. So it's going to be interesting to see, and man, it's going to be a very exciting season.
Yeah, it will be. We got about 4 months to the first preseason game.
So we got a bit of a wait. That's why I'm actually. That's why I love it. So I can organize. Like right now, I'm doing a lot of content in XFL. There's the Guardians. I wish they would have been better this year, but it didn't turn out that way. But it's just how it goes sometimes. It seems like with Florida teams, Buccaneers luckily are the uprising, but it just doesn't turn out well sometimes.
No, that's part of being a fan.
Oh yeah.
You got to take the highs with the lows, and sometimes there's more lows than highs.
Yeah. If you're a Buccaneers fan for a long time, we definitely know that feeling.
Absolutely.
And I'm excited because actually I'm going to be doing content very soon on Tampa Bay Infernos because their season starts actually next weekend. So that's going to be I'm really excited to do some content on them as well. So I'll definitely be staying busy. I'll be obviously making Buccaneers content, Tampa Bay Infernos content. So at least that will keep me entertained until the season starts.
You're going to be one busy man there, Gage. Football 24/7. Are you going to have time to sleep?
Guess I'm going to have to use some new comp. It was nice to. It's awesome to have you on the team. It's nice to actually kind of converse with someone because it can be a little difficult talking about myself. Just basically talking about my faults. That's why I really want to co-host, and I think we got a really good one here.
Well, thank you, Gage, and it's been great. I enjoyed our banter today, and hopefully this is just the first of many more to come throughout the off season, and then during the season we'll have some really good stuff planned and some good stuff coming your way. So,
Oh, definitely. And yeah, thanks, and welcome to the team. And well, we're gonna rock this thing. We're gonna do some great change together.
yes, we will. Can't wait.
Anyway, guys, that will be the video. And once again, thank you, Kim, for becoming part of the team. Hope you guys like this video. Like and subscribe, and I hope you buck that.